Yeah, so welcome back to yet another discussion on discrete mathematical structures. And just we'll have a quick glance on the topics which we've covered till now in the last few videos. We started with our very basic concepts on sets, and post which we saw some details about equal sets, some idea about representation of these sets, and we also looked into your set theory, the concept of set theory from where it emerged, and post which we saw the representation where we looked into the roster forms, tabular forms. Then we saw some basic definitions on your disjoint sets, and then we looked into your cardinal number, we looked into your universal set, we had a talk about your subset, and when we were talking about universal set, we also discussed about empty set. We saw some theorems, we looked into your superset, we talked about your proper subset, we also talked about some operations on sets post, in which we had a discussion on union, and we had a discussion on intersection. We looked into how to identify the complement. We talked about your symmetric difference, post which we talked about Venn diagrams, where we saw that we can once again draw the diagrams on all these operations, including your set difference, complement, union, intersection, symmetrical difference. And there we also saw that we can represent the disjoint sets and the sets which are not just disjoint using Venn diagram, post which we studied your algebra of sets, in which we saw your idempotent laws, we saw your associative laws, we talked about commutative laws, we had a discussion on distributive laws, we saw the identity laws, where we were dealing with a set with the union and intersection operation with the universe of discourse or the universal set and the empty set. Then we talked about your involution law, we saw complement law, we also talked about your De Morgan's law, post which I gave you an assignment to have a look on disproof. So this is all we have covered up till now, and in today's discussion we are going to talk about your ordered set, right? So basically your ordered set is nothing but the ordered collection of distinct objects. Right. So basically it means when we say set is nothing but an unordered, right now I'm talking about set, right? So your set is nothing but an unordered collection of distinct objects, and whenever I am bringing the ordered portion, that means if all the elements are in some relevant sequence, So in that case, I am going to see an ordered set. Right, so some minor modification to your definition of set, and we get an ordered set. So you can say that ordered set is defined as ordered collection of distinct object, right? Ordered collection of distinct objects. We can see some examples, right? I can have enumerated data type in several programming languages. I can have a list in Lisp. So in these ordered sets are also defined in terms of your ordered pairs as well, right? So your ordered pairs will be like, suppose let's say I have an ordered pair of objects, so it will be a pair of objects arranged in some order. For example, if suppose I have something like this, so here A will be the first object and my B is the second object in the ordered pair, right? This is going to be the second object in the ordered pairs. So this is about ordered sets. Now let's talk about the Cartesian products of sets. So let's take two sets which are A and B. So my Cartesian product will be denoted by A cross B. We'll go into the details about this Cartesian product, but it is denoted by A cross B, and it is the set of all possible ordered sets. So right, that's why I introduced this ordered pairs in the previous slide, because we are going to use it in case of Cartesian products. So Cartesian product is the set of all possible ordered pairs where the first part, right, the first part is an element from A and my second part will be an element of B. Right, so I can denote it as A cross B will be equals to an ordered pair of A comma B, where A exists in the first set A and small b exists in the second set B. So that's how we represent a Cartesian product. And let's take an example for the sake of understanding. So if suppose I have A as x comma y and B as A comma B comma C, let's say. So in this case, the Cartesian product of A cross B will be equals to the first element from the set A, which is X, comma second element, comma X from the first element, B from the second, comma X, comma C. Then I will be having Y comma A, comma Y comma B, comma Y comma C. And that's how we obtain the Cartesian product. So as the definition says, set of all possible ordered pairs, right? Set of all possible ordered pairs. So I am getting all possible ordered pairs, X comma A, X comma B, X comma C, Y comma A, Y comma B, Y comma C, where first part is an element from A, right? So everywhere, if you carefully observe, my first part is an element from A in the form of X and in the form of Y. And where the second part is an element of B. So my A comes from set B, B comes from set B, C comes from set B. Once again, A, B and C are coming from set B. Right, and that's how we obtain the Cartesian product of sets. Now let's talk about the properties of Cartesian products. And let's say for 4 sets A comma B comma C and D, what are things we are going to see? One is your A intersection B cross C intersection D will be equals to A intersection C and B intersection D. Similarly, we can have a case where I have set A minus set B cross C. This can be written as simply A cross C minus B cross C. I can add some more properties to it. By looking at these, you might have got some idea that I can write A union B cross C is equals to A cross C union B cross C. A simple one, pretty simple one. So let's add one more property to it, right? By this time you might have got an idea that what next we are going to see. See, these things are somewhat similar to all those your commutative, associative laws and other stuff, and some minor changes added to it. So I have A cross within brackets B and C, which is intersection. So the result will be your A cross B intersection A cross C. That's how we are going to get this, and we can have a proof for all these things as well, right? We can have a proof on all these things. And in fact, for your practice, let me give you one example which you can practice at home, and we are going to have a discussion on it. So what you're supposed to do is prove that A cross B and C is equals to A cross B and A cross C. So this is exactly this one, and I want you to practice the proof of it. Right, for the hint sake, what you can do is you take an ordered pair x comma y, which can be an element of the left hand side, and then you can go ahead with the proof of it. Right, just give a thought and then we'll have a separate discussion on this particular topic. Now let's talk about collection of sets. So if, see, I may come across a situation, if the elements of a set are set themselves, in that case such a set is said to be a collection of sets. Or I can also call it as class of sets. In some of the literatures, you will find that this thing is also addressed as family of sets. And if I want to consider some of the sets in a given class of set, then we call it as a subclass or subcollection. Right, so right now we are talking about collection of a set. That means I have several sets collected in a given set. And as I said, it is also called as family of sets, or you can call it as your class of sets. Right. So family of set, for the sake of example, I'm using it as A1, A2, A3, and so on and so forth. So this will be your family of set, where A1 will be, let's say, A, B. A2 can be, let's say, 1, 2. Your A3 can be, let's say, once again A, B, and so on and so forth. So this was all about a basic definition on collection of sets. Now let's talk about some more terminologies associated with these sets, or you can say that set theory. So to start with, what we have is, we have a power set. So this power set is nothing but the family of all the subset of a set. So it is a family of all the subset of a set. So for example, let's take a set A which is equals to A comma B. Right, let's consider this particular set. So what we are going to do is, we are going to then list all the subsets of A. Right, in that case I have to find the subsets of A, all the subsets of A. One will be obviously a null set, another one will be, let's say, A, another one will be B, and the last one will be A comma B. This is going to be this. So the power set of A, which is denoted by P of A, that will be equal to the collection of this, which is null set, A alone, B alone, and A comma B separately. And symbolically, what we are going to write is, or how we are going to write is, power set of A, which is P of A, is equals to X, where X is a subset of A. X is a subset of A. Alright, in this case, like I had the A, I identified the 4 subset of A, combined it and found this. One thing which you should note is, from this particular example, one is, right, that both your empty set, you might have observed this, right? You might have made this particular observation. The empty set and the entire set A are the members of the power set. Right, so whenever I am going to identify, one thing I have to notice, the empty set and the set itself is going to be the member of the power set of A. Another point to ponder is, this point we are taking from the discussion we had in our second video, that if the set A has n elements, then the power set A is going to have 2 to the power n elements. That means all the subsets of A. Right, try to connect the dots. Right, previously we had a discussion, right, that for a set A with n elements, 2 to the power n is going to be the number of subsets, and that's what will be the number of elements of a power set. So nothing magical, but it's the same thing which we saw previously. So this was about power set. Let's talk about multi-set now. So your multi-set are the sets where an element can be found as a member more than once. Right. So the occurrence of a particular member will be more than once. We can take an example where, let's say, I have A is in this form: A, B, C, D, D. So there are certain elements which are found more than once, and hence this particular part is called as multiset. And the same thing can also be written as, I'm taking the same previous example, as A equals to 2 dot small a, B, C, 2 dot small d. That shows that there are 2 A's, there are 2 D's and 1 B, and let's make it more specific so that it would be very clear. It would be 1 dot B, 1 dot C, 2 dot D. That says 2 times A, 1 time B, 1 times C, and 2 times D. Right. So that's how we can add this particular thing as well. So there are 2 more terms associated with this multiset. That's why I gave a thought on it, and I tried to add another slide all of a sudden. So one is your multiplicity. So this multiplicity of an element that too found in a multiset is defined to be the number of times the element appears in a multiset. And the second term is cardinality. So cardinality of a multiset is defined to be the cardinality of the set it corresponds to. Assuming that elements in the multiset are all distinct. That elements in your multiset are all distinct. So what it says is, it is the cardinality of the set it corresponds to, and what we assume is that all the elements in the multisets are all distinct. Now let's take one example, right, where I have two multisets A comma B, such that A is equals to 2A, 3B and 1C, B is equals to 4A and 3B. In this case, your A union B will be 4A, 3B and 1C. And see, right now we are dealing with your multisets. That's why we have to take care of these things as well. Right, the number of times it appears. And your A intersection B will be your 2A and 3B, because I don't see any C available in B. That's why we are going to go ahead with this kind of setup where I'm able to identify only 2A and 3B in case of your intersection. Right, so what we saw union of multisets and intersection of multisets. Now let's talk about infinite sets. So a set which is not finite is an infinite set. Now you may say that what's new in this definition, right? So let me take some examples so that would become easier for you. What I have is the set of all integers. So that would be -1, 0, 1, 2 and moves to this. Another example, the set of all real numbers. Now the point is, the set of all integers is your countable infinite set. Whereas the set of all real numbers is uncountably infinite set. Right, this is also called as your uncountable set. In some of the literatures, you will find it as non-denumerable set as well. Right, so in some of the literatures, you will find that this thing is also called as non-denumerable set or uncountably infinite set or uncountable set. So in case of your infinite set, a set which is not finite will be called as infinite set, and a set that is said to be countably infinite if there is like one-to-one correspondence between the elements in the set of the elements n. That is, if set is countably infinite, we can make a list of its members in such a way that each one corresponds uniquely to a natural number. Right. I hope this discussion makes sense. Now, the next thing is your equivalent sets. So in case of equivalent sets, the two finite, because now once again we are dealing back with the finite sets only. So two finite sets A and B are said to be equivalent and this thing is written as A equals to this symbol and B. If they have the same number of elements, that is, number of elements of A is equals to number of elements of B. Right, let me give you an example, and then in the next slide I'll try to confuse you with a small discussion, and in fact I'll provide you the solution as well. Let's say I have a set A which is equals to P, Q, R, S. And I have a set B which is equals to W, X, Y and Z. In this case, the number of A is equals to number of B, and hence A comma B are equivalent sets. See, irrespective of the kind of elements I have, there isn't any similarity between P, Q, R, S and W, X, Y, Z apart from all these being these letters. That means P is not equal to W. I mean, I cannot comment on it. Q is not equal to X, or I cannot comment on it, whether it is equal or not, right? They may have the same values. But here we are only dealing with the number of elements. So in that case, I am only concerned about the number, that's it. So I should add something more to it, right? There is something called as equal sets, right? Okay, so there is some problem with this PowerPoint. Yeah, it's over now. So there is something called as equal set, and there is something called as equivalent set. So, and both the things we have studied, equivalent set just now and equal set in our previous discussions. So the thing which we should note is that equal sets and your equivalent sets are two different things. And how these things are different? Equal sets are always equivalent, but the equivalent sets may not be equal sets, right? That means it may be or may not be, right? The reason being, let me try to explain you with an example. If I have A equals to A comma B comma C comma D, and B equals to X comma Y comma Z comma W, so I know that these two are equivalent, but these two are not equal, right? If suppose I have something like this C, which is B comma C comma D comma A, in that case I can say that these are equal sets, and additionally these are equivalent sets as well. See, on one side I am dealing with the number of elements only, which is in context with your equivalent sets. In case of equal sets, I am dealing with not only the number of elements, I am also looking at the kind of elements or the value of those elements. Right, the kind of elements or the number of elements, both. So there is a minor difference resulting into a major impact between equivalent sets and equal sets. So this is all in this particular discussion. So in this discussion we looked into variety of topics, starting from your ordered sets, we looked into your Cartesian product of sets, we talked about your properties of Cartesian product, and we said that okay, we can prove these properties as well. Then we talked about your power set. We also looked into your multi-sets. We talked about your infinite sets. We also talked about your countable infinite and uncountably infinite sets. And afterwards, we saw a small discussion on equivalent sets and the equal sets. In our next video, we are going to talk about your proper sets. We are going to see we are going to do some problems as well, and then we are going to talk about the partitioning of a set. We are going to talk about a very interesting paradox that is just for the sake of discussion, that is your Russell's paradox, in our next video. So see you then.